Okay. Let's continue where we left off. Let's get right into it. Chapter 2. 3 months of runway. When they took into account every expense they could think of, that was how long they could make it without needing any more income. The vast majority of the money had been saved from Teddy's graduation party, gifts from his massive family. Nick had received money from his graduation as well, but it didn't compare to someone with 20 aunts and uncles. Teddy slept in the passenger side of the car as Nick cruised down the expressway. Cold weather had blown in, and along with it, snow. The road conditions were abysmal, forcing him to drive slowly. On the radio, a country station played the top hits from the 90s. Nick kept it turned down so as not to disturb Teddy. It allowed him to focus on his thoughts. It had only been a week since they had first left, and still, his parents were fresh in his mind. He had thought they were going to disown him when he informed them that he would be moving to California. They hadn't. In fact, they had been more enthusiastic than anything. Sure, they still thought becoming a professional YouTuber was a dumb idea, but they were happy he decided to go out and pass or fail on his own merits. To them, he would either succeed or come to his senses. So Nick had left them on good terms, with a kiss goodbye and $100 bill for gas. The next step of the journey had been Teddy's idea. To get more footage and stretch their money, they would spend an entire month touring the country on a scenic journey to California. They would live out of their car and document every step of that journey. Holding up his phone, Nick did a balancing act, trying to see the analytics of his latest video and watching the road at the same time. The numbers weren't good. So far, his road trip videos were generating 30% fewer views than normal. He'd even lost subscribers. Realizing he was drifting, Nick brought the car back to the center of the lane and dropped his phone, all the while continuing to dwell on his numbers. The scenic route had seemed like a good idea. It just wasn't panning out well enough. Not to mention the fact that they were spending more than they had originally thought on food and hotels. Teddy live streaming only cell phone games wasn't helping them any either. Nick drove for a while longer before his GPS told him he had come to the next exit he needed. Only a mile down the road, they would come to a park designed around a giant boulder, their next filming location. "Yo," he said, bumping Teddy in the shoulder. "We made it." Teddy looked groggy as he sat up in his seat. He glanced around deliriously. "How long was I out?" "About an hour." Nick pulled into the parking spot and climbed out of the car. Teddy lagged behind. He was still stretching by the time Nick unloaded their cameras. Pointing his camera towards himself and holding it as far away as he could, Nick put on his best smile and hit the record button. "I'm Nick all the way, and today we're going on a hike to visit the Big Bear Rock Formation. Let's go check it out," he said, then spun the camera away from himself. "You ready, Teddy?" Teddy yawned, putting the strap from his own camera over his head and hitting record. "Yup." It was roughly a mile to rock formations, and Nick tried to capture as many of the sights the park offered on the way, mostly trees that were in the later weeks of losing all their leaves. He didn't worry about sound. He would find some royalty-free music to dub over the video when he was editing. "How do you feel about all this?" Nick asked when they were roughly halfway to the rocks. Teddy glanced over. Feel about what? The road trip, said Nick. None of our videos are doing very good. I know, said Teddy. I'm not sure what we can do about it, though. We can call it off and head straight to Cali. What? And change the plan, said Teddy. We just need more time is all. Once our viewers get used to the new content, we don't have time. We're hemorrhaging our California money, and we're not even in California. We're saving money by not paying rent, said Teddy. Nick shook his head. We underestimated how much gas and food was going to cost. Add to that the nights it gets so cold we have to get hotel rooms. The way I see it, at this point, we're spending even more. Teddy stopped walking and stared down the trail, his breath coming out in small white puffs. He looked like he was thinking, so Nick let him be. Okay, he said finally. I say we continue filming along the way, but from now on, a straight path to California. That seems like the best option to me, too. This realization put them in a somber mood for the rest of the shoot. It was not lost on either of them that their first video idea manifested into a complete failure. It wasn't until Nick told his phone to go directly to California and the phone replied that it would take 20 hours that their mood began to lift. If they hadn't been before, they were now officially on their way. Over the next 3 days, Nick captured as much footage as he could. He gave all of his energy in front of the camera and used every trick he knew to try and boost his views. In the end, it was all for naught. Every road trip video he put out underperformed. By the time they reached the outskirts of Los Angeles, he felt happy to be moving on to the next step. That step turned out to be far more expensive than either of them imagined. They found a small, borderline condemned 2-bedroom house that fit their budget. Unfortunately, the property owner wanted both first and last month's rent up front. This left them with enough money to eat nothing but noodles for the foreseeable future. At least we made it, Nick declared when they were bringing in their bags. Teddy thumbed a piece of loose siding that had separated from the rest. At what cost? Everyone has to start somewhere, said Nick. Which reminds me, you want the small bedroom or the smaller bedroom? Nick had to admit he'd never imagined living in such a tiny space. The view wasn't anything to write home about either. The yard, if that's what you could call it, seemed to be cut short into the side of a hill. It created walls of dirt that encapsulated the property. Looking out the windows, dirt was the only thing they could see. This place was nothing like the rich mansions that towered up around them. Perhaps it had once been a guest house, or an old person's who refused to ever move or upgrade. Whatever the reason, their neighbors' homes were far more luxurious. I was just thinking, am I holding this book in front of my mouth and covering up the microphone? I sure hope not. Let me get back into this. Nick constantly found himself staring up at the biggest of them all. It towered directly next door, catching all of the sunlight and casting their house in shadow. Its white walls and cathedral architecture made it appear as though it should exist in some Greek mythology story rather than the modern city. From time to time, Nick caught glimpses of landscapers as they trimmed bushes near the plane of the hill. Nick had no idea how it could be possible to afford a place like that, or the kind of person who would live there. He imagined some oil tycoon, or a movie studio head. Perhaps it was even some prince from overseas, a vacation home to rival any palace. Hey, said Teddy, snapping Nick out of his trance. Are you going to help me or just stand there all day? They were moving furniture to make room for their computer setups, and Teddy watched computer setups, and Teddy waited at one end of the couch. "Sorry," said Nick, coming over to pick up the other end. It became heavy, and they ended up sliding it most of the way. The room left over was more than needed for their setups. They were finally ready to settle in and begin their work. For all the next 2 weeks, Teddy and Nick alternated between driving and taking lift rides down to the pier to shoot videos. Most of these did little better than the road trip. Cost-wise, they were neither paying back gas or lift rides. "We need a collaboration," Teddy said one night as they were going over their analytics. "That's the whole point of coming here." "Yeah, but we don't know anyone," said Nick. "We know 2 people." "We do? Oh, Daisy and Tom," said Nick. "I haven't seen them in years. I've never even met Tom, to be honest. I can't just come out of the blue and ask to be put on their channels." "Is that, or we run out of money and have to go back home," said Teddy. "I'm not going to use my cousin." "What's the point of family if you can't help each other out?" "How would we be helping them out at all?" asked Nick. "We have nothing to offer, which means we would be asking for charity. If our channels grow, we can bring in more people that we can then use to help grow their channels." "They each have almost 6 million subscribers apiece," said Nick. "How could either one of us help them grow?" "Sorry," said Teddy. "I guess we'll just fail." Nick shook his head. "Whatever, man. I'm going to keep working hard, but if you want to take shortcuts, be my guest." "I'm not the one with the famous cousin." If he wanted Nick to reply, he would be disappointed. Nick grabbed his camera and headed out to shoot. He wanted to, of course. He would feel the heat rising in his chest, but he wouldn't dignify it. Using people felt wrong, and that went double for family. If they couldn't make it on their own, they didn't deserve to make it at all. Nick found himself wandering past the large front gate of his neighbor's mansion. The driveway snaked through hedges before winding its way around a fountain. The peaks of the house rose beyond that, over walls that were mainly glass. He leaned into the fence, trying to see into the dark windows. They stared back, concealing the contents within. He grew uneasy with the feeling someone was watching him, and became aware that his hands gripped the bars of the front gate. He let go and looked around before moving on. The video he made that day seemed on par with the others he kept making. Same with the next, and the one after that. Each time they brought up their analytics, Teddy would tighten his lips and lock eyes with Nick. Another week went by before Nick finally broke down. "Fine," he said, though Teddy hadn't spoken. "I'll call my cousin and arrange a meeting, but it won't be for a collaboration. We'll just be catching up and getting advice." "Better than nothing," said Teddy. That's how, on the very next Friday, Nick and Teddy found themselves in a lift traveling to the west side of town for dinner with Nick's cousin. Coming from the east, they were on a path that would take them through the heart of downtown Los Angeles. They had heard the traffic could be horrendous, and so had avoided such a trip so far. Fortunately, it didn't seem to be too bad currently. Nick caught a whiff of something unpleasant and winced. A moment later, he caught sight of the culprit. A large pile of trash stacked 10 feet high, next to which a man relieved himself. "What the hell?" said Nick. Beyond the trash, lining both sides of the road, were weather-beaten tents and tarps, their residents lounging around in ratty camping chairs, hollow-eyed with a sheen of dirt on their skin. One woman teetered at the edge of the road in a daze, her chin tucked against her chest. "Welcome to Central City East," said the driver, or as it's more commonly known, Skid Row. "It's a crap hole," blurted Teddy. People come from all around the world, said their driver. They want to make it big in Hollywood and seek fame and fortune. This is where their dreams come to die. They gave up? Asked Nick. The driver shrugged. You know how expensive rent is around here? Oh, we know, said Teddy. Then you know it won't take long to fall behind. Over the next 15 minutes, the tents began to fade as the buildings grew taller. Nick couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Skid Row was not a very pleasant place. It made the west side seem all the better when they finally got there. Daisy and her husband lived in a 3-bedroom townhouse far beyond Skid Row, a fancy place with square architecture that gave it a modern or even futuristic look. As soon as they stepped out of the lift, Daisy came gliding from her front door and wrapped Nick in a hug. She had bleached blonde hair that pulled back on her skin in a ponytail, revealing her slender, pale face. Her leggings and tank top left little to the imagination, a fact that Teddy did not seem to mind at all. Nick had to nudge him when he caught him looking. Oh my gosh, she said as she pulled back from the hug. I can't believe how big you've gotten. Yup, said Nick, stifling his embarrassment. That'll happen. But I never imagined so fast, she said. So you're this Nick character I've been hearing so much about. Nick glanced over his cousin's shoulder to see her husband, Tom, stepping out from the front door. He had never met Tom before, but he recognized him from Daisy's YouTube channel. He was a handsome man with hair buzzed to stubble and rippling muscles that showed through his clothes. Nice to meet you, said Nick, reaching out his hand. Tom brushed the hand away. I'm not accepting any handshake from you. We're family. Nick found himself caught off guard as Tom came in and hugged him. The man was in such good shape that it felt like hugging a statue. When he pulled away, he continued to hold Nick by the shoulders. How do you like this place? He asked, flicking his head toward the house. It's very nice, said Nick. It's the newest house on the block. I picked it up for $4 million. Teddy let out a guttural noise that sounded something like a cough mixed with a squeal. $4 million? You and your numbers, said Daisy. Come on, boys. Let's give you the tour. Inside the house looked very clean, with wood floors and angular walls that matched something out of a magazine. They had a pool table next to the kitchen with artistic globe-shaped lights hanging over top. The back wall was one long window with a large sliding door that revealed the lush green grass of the small plot of land that filled their backyard. Beyond that lay the sprawling cityscape of Los Angeles. Nick took a moment to observe the Hollywood sign sitting high on a hill to the right. This place is beautiful, he said. Tom came up beside him and crossed his arms. I wasn't going to settle for anything less. The cityscape stretched on, a mesh of gray and brown that contrasted when viewed over the lush grass. I'm struggling with this paragraph, guys. Hang on. I know what's wrong. Okay. Let's try this again. The cityscape stretched on, a mesh of gray and brown that contrasted with the views over the lush grass in the backyard. I would have had a pool installed, said Tom, but I shoot most of my videos in the backyard, and there wouldn't be any space left. That's what the gym membership is for, honey, said Daisy. Tom gave her a condescending look. A proper house should have a pool. Could you make videos utilizing a pool if you had one? Asked Teddy. I could do anything, said Tom, but is it practical? Nick caught Daisy rolling her eyes. just as there came a knock on the door. "Are you going to get that?" asked Tom almost immediately. Daisy went around the corner to the front door, and when she returned, she carried a large plastic bag. She brought it over to the pool table and revealed that inside were a bunch of fully stuffed burritos wrapped in aluminum foil. Nick's stomach growled at the sight of them. "I hope you don't mind, but Tom keeps us on a strictly vegan diet," said Daisy. Nick's heart sank. He had had vegan meals in the past, and it hadn't been very pleasant. "Health and wellness of both body and aura," said Tom. "That's the key." "Looks good to me," said Teddy. Nick felt pleasantly surprised to find that he was right. It wasn't the best burrito he had ever had, but it wasn't bad either. There was no dining room table. Instead, Daisy had them eat in the living room. This caused Nick to... What did it cause Nick to do? This caused Nick to ponder how often they spilled on the couch. It looked brand new and clean, which made him nervous about eating over it. "So how have you boys been adjusting to Cali life?" asked Tom. Teddy swallowed his current bite, then said, "It hasn't been what I expected." "Is that so?" asked Tom. "Yeah, we've been working hard on our YouTube videos, but it's not getting us any more views than if we'd stayed home." "So far," Nick cut in. "I'm sure it's about to pick up." Tom nodded. "It gets harder to grow on there every year." "I couldn't imagine starting my channel even a year after I did," said Daisy. I would have been lost in the noise." Nick felt a nudge at his side and glanced over to see Teddy giving a look. Nick knew in an instant what he wanted. He wanted Nick to ask for a collaboration with them. Nick mouthed back, "No." "We were hoping to meet some new YouTubers while we were out here," said Teddy. "Thought it would be nice to collaborate and grow together." "You're in the right place," said Tom. "Are there any clubs or groups you guys know about?" asked Nick. "Someplace that will make it a little easier to meet new people?" "I do a book club with the girls," said Daisy, "though I'm not sure you two would enjoy it." Teddy huffed, and Nick could tell he was getting frustrated. "We might have to. If we don't get a good collaboration soon, we won't be able to make rent." "I'm sure we'll think of something," Nick cut in. "Don't you sweat it, boys," said Tom. "I've got a few people in the city I can introduce you to. The best part is, you won't have to join a woman's book club." "Any chance to sneak off to the city?" said Daisy, crossing her arms. "Oh, come on," said Tom. "No," said Daisy. "It's fine. Go have your fun. I'll just sit back and tend to the home like a good little wife." Tom let out a snort of strained amusement. "I'm trying to help out your family." "It's fine," said Nick, but they ignored him. Nick looked at Teddy for guidance, but he just shrugged. "Oh, what a knight in shining armor you are," Daisy went on. "Book club?" asked Tom. "I'm offering them real solutions, not some silly waste of time." Daisy jumped to her feet. "Waste of time?" "For them," said Teddy. "Silly waste of time for them." Daisy began to tap her foot, a gesture Nick recognized very well. His mother did it whenever she was becoming irate. He had even seen one of his uncles on the same side of the family do it before. If Tom had any inclination of what was coming, he would retreat. "Here's an idea," she said. "Nick, are you here looking for a collaboration?" Nick sank back. "I just wanted to come visit." Teddy nudged him again. Nick ignored it. "Daisy," said Tom. "No," said Daisy. "I don't accept that. You traveled halfway across the entire country to this city, and now all you want is to come visit?" Nick tried to swallow, but his throat had gone dry. He felt afraid that if he reached for his water glass, his hand might be smacked. You're being uncouth, dear, said Tom. It's very reasonable for your family to come visit. To not be able to pay rent and then come here not wanting to collab, Daisy went on. I just don't understand why you wouldn't turn to me, your family. I just don't understand why you wouldn't turn to me, your family, for direct help. Nick, said Nick, not sure how to respond. Do you not want your family to help you? Asked Daisy. Teddy nudged Nick again. This time, Nick nudged him back, hard. Is this some stubborn male pride? Said Daisy. I don't understand, Nick. When Nick spoke, he felt surprised at how shallow his voice came out. I do want to collaborate with you. Good, said Daisy. That's what family's for. Tom clapped his hands and let out a haughty but forced laugh, breaking some of the tension coming from Daisy. All right, he interjected. What say we do it tomorrow afternoon? Bring exercise clothes and something to go out in after. I know just the right people to introduce you to. Daisy's foot began to tap again, though it appeared Tom did not notice. Thus concludes Chapter 2. So, we've been introduced to Tom and Daisy. What do we think? Can you see any parallels? I can. Okay, this video is almost a half hour. Gotta go.